You know who's underrated as hell? Choso from JJK. Dude's legitimately a beast if you think about it. Plus, his technique, blood manipulation, is cracked too. So, I was thinking, why not give Deku his version of blood manipulation and see what happens? So I made this. If you want to see more like this, then please leave a like and subscribe so I know you're liking the stuff I'm putting out. Anyways, less yap, let's get right into what if Deku had blood manipulation. Deku was born to Inko and Hisashi Midoriya, much like in canon. A nice, happy family. Though, Hisashi himself is, let's just say, non-contact. Deku in this timeline is raised in another part of his hometown though, in another primary school completely separate from anyone else. Deku will grow up being the same type of kid. You know, nerdy and geeky, but with a big heart. Throughout this timeline, he gets more than a big heart. He's got power to back it up. Deku at the age of 4 would unlock a strange quirk, a very versatile quirk. The doctor would tell him that his quirk is blood-based, and that though he might not understand it quite yet, every blood vessel in his body is under his command. Deku, you know, being 4, wouldn't react to this much, thinking blood was kinda scary in all honesty. But he would be hyped that he finally got his quirk, going back to his home and, you know, just trying to activate it, which would not work. He doesn't understand how his blood works. Of course it's not going to work. Frustrated, he goes down and eats dinner. He would ask his mum about blood and what it is. She explains it, how every person has it flowing within them, and how it keeps them alive. She doesn't say any details as to not scare Deku too much. Deku hearing this gets a little bit of a grasp on it, but is still confused, deciding to do his own research. He walks upstairs and hops on his computer, sitting up all night watching YouTube videos on blood quirks, finding some overseas heroes with weak versions, until he stumbles across one from Japan, his hometown, Vlad King. He straight away idolizes him by default, watching him as, in an instant, he pumps blood outside his body and traps and capture villains. Deku thinks it's the coolest thing ever, deciding that tomorrow he was going to train until he could do that. He goes to sleep and wakes up the next day excited as ever. Early in the morning he wakes up and rushes outside, his mum still being asleep. He'd be watching a video of Vlad King, watching as his gauntlets fill with blood and project outwards. Deku watching and visualizing, trying to recreate the same feeling on his own blood, which, to his surprise, actually works. A small cut on his left arm would begin feeling hot as a small cup worth of blood pulls out from his body. Floating midair. Deku, seeing the blood outside his body, would immediately begin blacking out. His quirk was blood manipulation, but he just took a huge amount of blood out of a 4-year-old's body. His vision goes blurry until he can't maintain control over the blood anymore. He drops it onto the floor as a splash. He then passes out. Luckily, Inko hears the splash and would have been shaken awake, looking out the window to see the crime scene in front of her. She screams and calls the ambulance, sitting with Deku in the yard as he progressively gets wider and wider. They come. Deku was hemorrhaging. They were unsure if they could save him, but straight away gave him injections, rushing him to the hospital. They check his body, seeing no signs of damage anywhere. Where did all that blood come from? Deku luckily wakes up the next day, looking around the room with a huge headache, still feeling out of it. He didn't remember what happened. Looking around, he sees nothing. White sheets draped over a metal guardrail. He puts his head down and closes his eyes, opening once again to see his mum. She notices and hugs him straight away, asking what happened to him. He's confused until the memories come flooding back. He was trying to use his quirk, like Vlad King. The doctors hear this and would know straight away. He used blood manipulation outside his body and lost too much blood at once. Where was I? The doctor sits him down and explains that until he's a little older, he should stick to manipulation inside of his body. Deku takes his words to heart, getting released and driving home. He walks around the backyard to see the bloodstains still on the floor. This was a firm reminder to him to get stronger, which is exactly what he does. From the age of 4 to 14, Deku would keep his quirk under wraps, never showing it off. Well, never being able to show it off. You know, he's only been using it inside his body. From the time Training though, Deku gets a very good rap over his quirk. He finds out exactly what his quirk can do. His ability isn't just blood control, it's manipulation at a cellular level. Deku can control the shape, composition, temperature, plasma count, and red blood count. Pretty much anything to do with blood. Deku doing some research over these properties would find out the benefits of these. He practices 2 moves in particular: Flowing Red Scale, an ability that controls and spikes his body temperature, pulse rate, and red blood cell count to give him extra stamina and offensive capabilities. He can also stack this ability, giving more than just a boost of speed and strength. I'd say a nice 5 times buff. Now you can lift a car with it pretty easy. Along with this, he would have developed a defensive technique, though it's extremely risky to use. A move that focuses on the defensive part of his quirk, focusing on the coagulation of his blood until it's rock hard, then coating his body parts with that blood for harder and more armored options. Though he's already pretty stacked, he decides to take it one step further after his teacher comes in telling them that they all need to choose their high school. Deku choosing UA. The teacher doesn't make it known to the class on this one, pulling Deku aside and asking him personally. Deku said he will make him proud and that he should have more faith, walking away as the 10 months of training would begin. For these 10 months, Deku trains. He knows how to do blood manipulation inside his body, but externally he's been waiting to do, until now. He tells his mum it's time. Going to the doctor, he actually gets some blood taken out, an idea the doctor thought of after the first incident. Through this, Deku can practice his blood manipulation outside his body with no harm. He's hype, having the biggest smile on his face. He thanks his mum as he thinks for a second. He needs a training spot, and he knows just the place. He takes a long hike, walking into a forest he used to play as a kid. It has a weird vibe to it, but it was secluded. Just his luck though, it was raining. He finds a nice open patch as a grin forms on his face. He stares down a tree, remembering the feeling from when he was a kid, feeling the blood inside of him. Now thanks to his training, he was able to take a small portion from the blood bag and play with it around his body for a while until it burst. Deku's confused by this, trying again, making a small sphere of blood and moving it around himself. This time, it splatters quicker. He's confused. He doesn't feel any strain. He just keeps trying, making orbs of blood, different thickness, coagulation, temp, compression, but nothing. He runs out of blood and gives it a rest, walking home and telling his mum what happened. "I couldn't do it, Mum. I just don't know what happened, but the rain was getting to me, so I walked home. I could feel it. I could control it just fine, but it never lasted more than 5..." He cuts himself off, thinking about it. Wait, the rain. It messed me up. Of course his blood didn't like it. He rushes to his room and looks it up. Sure enough. From there, Deku finds his one and only weakness. For the rest of the 10 months, Deku would figure out the basics of how to control his blood outside of his body. He can make it into solids like a knife or small pebbles, or control it into anything he wants, like a net, a scythe, or a wall of blood. Through this, Deku also figures out another part of his power, which, due to his age, he couldn't realize before. He walks through UA entrance exam, taking a long ass train to get there. He stares at the sign which he'd only seen online. Hype as anything, Deku rushes inside, his blood already flowing quicker off of instinct. Deku calms himself and sits the theory exam. Due to all of his studying as a kid, Deku was low-key smart as shit. Like, he had to figure out all the science behind his quirk, so he's got a pretty good grasp on the theory. After that though, is the real challenge. He walks to the exam site, looking around at all the other kids present. One kid seems to stick out to him, a blonde kid. He was sweating a lot. It was kinda gross. What's even weirder is that he was starting fights with everyone. Deku rolls his eyes and walks towards him. He's about to say something, but the door's open in front of him. He straight away lowers his stance. Flowing red scale. Arrows appear on his eyes. Stack! Deku feels his body overflowing with power. He's physically hot to the touch. Deku runs in quicker than even Bakugo can. Straight away feeling the blood from his heart, he pushes it through his fingers. Exorcism. Deku shoots out orbs of blood from his fingers that form into scythes, running in a straight line in the robots in front of him. He hardens them to a fine tip and expands them last second, making a huge circular scythe that instantly chops 6 points worth of robots in half. Deku rushes on as the robots fall down beside him. He doesn't even check if they're broken, rushing by as the same orbs that turned into scythe return back to him, flowing back into his body once again. Stack! He sprints straight off again. Bakugo from the distance would be staring at this. Who the hell was this kid? And who the hell does he think he is? Bakugo straight blasts off, rushing Deku down. Deku hears the explosions behind him. Thinking it's robots, he pays no mind, until the same Bloodkin rushes past him, destroying a 3-pointer that he was about to. Now it was on. Deku speaks. Hell nah, that was mine. Bakugo looks back at Deku, only to see him gone. Deku currently was in front of Bakugo, making the most of his wasted time, destroying another 5 robots. Deku's points, 11. Bakugo's points, 3. From then on, they both have it in their heads to beat each other, a rivalry already brewing between them. Deku rushes off to the right as Bakugo rushes to the left, the teachers watching from above, impressed at the aptitude of these two. The test continues, Deku destroying a total of 80 points of robots, Bakugo getting 77, though the test wasn't over. He had destroyed all the robots down the alleyways. Looking down the road though, he sees something that piques his interest, the 0-pointer. Deku looks at this and smirks a little, seeing the blonde kid already rushing to it to destroy it. Deku won't let this happen though. He yells, "Stack!" as he runs forward as quick as he can. His fingertips release a constant stream of blood behind him, forming a huge sphere of blood behind his head. Everyone's confused. Where's he getting all of this? Deku's never used this technique, though it feels powerful. The ball behind him begins to shrink, smaller and smaller, until it's shaking from how far it compressed. Deku brings the sphere in front of him, looking the 0-pointer down. A perfect shot. Bakugo watches as he's midair, looking on as Deku claps his hands around the sphere. A bright red light emanating from his body, until a huge red stream of blood sprays at the robot. Deku barely controls it, slices up and to the right. The 0-pointer gets cut straight in half, cutting it from foot to right shoulder. Everyone stands amazed. Even Bakugo is impressed that the 0-pointer slides a little, electricity cackling as it short circuits. It falls to the floor as the test finally ends.